With over 15 million copies sold for ETS2 and roughly 3.8 million for ATS, these games have built one of the biggest communities out there. And with a community this big, the opinions will always be divided. Over time, I've come across a lot of unpopular opinions. I'm talking about posts buried in downvotes across forums like Reddit, Discord and Steam. Some of them made no sense, others were surprisingly reasonable, but for a few of them I actually had to stop and think, because these opinions go from simple stuff like wait stations are pointless in ATS all the way to one of the most sensitive topics in the history of scssoftware, the Heart of Russia DLC. So today we're looking at the least popular opinions I've seen in the truck scene community. Some I agree with, some I don't, but when you take the emotion out and apply logic, things get pretty interesting. This point of view got some really heavy criticism, and I get why. We've been asking for the ability to leave the cab for many years, but then I thought about it. At first, the idea sounds great. You can walk around your truck, you can check your tires, maybe refuel. It can seem like a must-have for immersion, but is it something we need in a driving sim, or just a cool feature we used once or twice and then completely ignore? So I understand the hype, but if we are to be completely honest, is this opinion really that bad? Or just a hard pill to swallow? And speaking of realism, this next one might sting a little. This one claims that most players don't actually want full realism, they only want it when it's convenient. And it hits close to home for me. I always said that I want the real trucking experience in full. But what about if it becomes a chore? For how long would I actually be playing if instead of driving this huge world, I would spend most of my playtime doing everything else a real trucker would have to do? This one speaks harshly, but truly. We like the idea of realism, but probably what we actually want is a comfortable cinematic version of realism. A fairy tale that looks good, feels good, and doesn't punish us for playing it casually. The majority of our community is asking for it now, but maybe, just maybe, if the game was actually built as a true simulator, we'd be looking at maybe half the player base we got now. This one really blew my mind. Even now I remember how hyped this edition was upon release. Players loved it, it was meant to add immersion, make those long highway stretches more enjoyable, and it looked good on paper. More depth, more interaction, more immersion. In reality, my experience is I pull in, I stop, I wait for that green light, and I drive off. I would lie if I said there aren't times when I just roll my eyes when one shows up ahead of me. This player got downvoted hard, but why? He's 100% right. He didn't say the addition wasn't nice to have, but since there's no way to be overweight, no punishment and reward, this mechanic has no depth, so as it is right now, it's pretty pointless. Do I wish this was never added? No. Would I enjoy it more if I had a mechanic behind it, allowing me to risk going overweight or miscalculate my weight distribution? Definitely. Now, I know this one sounds insane because everybody loves to blame the AI. But what if we're completely honest? Most of the weird AI moments I've seen in thousands of hours of gameplay were either caused by a map mod or by me simply misjudging the size of my trailer, turning too tight, or rushing an overtake. And I'm not alone. One player commented something that stuck with me. He said virtually every traffic accident I've had was due to my own impatience rather than the AI bugging out. And honestly, that's true for a lot of us. Sure, the AI has its moments, but overall it's predictable, it follows the rules, and it reacts pretty well. So yeah, the AI is imperfect, but it's not the villain we make it out to be. Every time SES announces a new truck, the hype is always around the latest generation, the newest dashboard, the biggest screens, the cleanest interior. And a perfect recent example is the Scania Super dropping in 1.57. People love it, and honestly, rightfully so, those things are super nice. But at the same time, a lot of us miss the trucks with real character, analog dashboards, rough engines, the machines that actually shape the industry. And you might say, well yeah, of course, I want one of those, that's not an unpopular opinion. But here's the twist, what if you had to choose? Would you trade the brand new Scania Super for an older iconic model like the Scania 143 or the Volvo F12 or a classic Kenworth K100, if adding one meant losing the other? Mods can fill the gap, sure, but sometimes they're insanely good and other times they're unfinished, outdated and behind giant paywalls. So yeah, I think this one's a tricky one. We all say we want the classics, but if we actually had to trade the newest official trucks for older models, I'm not sure everyone would. This happens every time a new map expansion drops. The hype is through the roof, screenshots everywhere, everybody calling it the best DLC yet. And a month later, it's suddenly quiet. Let's be honest, when was the last time you actually drove through Iberia in ETS2, or maybe Arkansas in ATS? A lot of people bought them, played them once and then went straight back to their comfort regions. And that's not to say that every new DLC is bad, but new doesn't automatically mean fun. A DLC can look amazing and still not offer the most enjoyable driving experience. Sometimes the older regions with tighter roads, more varied terrain, are just better to actually play on. So yeah, hype plays a huge role. Sometimes the community falls in love with something simply because it's new, not because it's the DLC they actually return to. And while we're talking about things that could have been different, this next one is a big what if. Now, this one's interesting because most people never actually consider it. ATS launched in California, and for almost 10 years we've just accepted that that's the way it is. But imagine, if the game started in a completely different place, just as iconic, but more dense and diverse like New York. The driving experience would have been totally different, shorter distances between cities, and way less empty desert for new players. The West Coast made sense for SCS at a time, simpler roads to build and a natural start for their team. But in terms of player engagement, starting on the East Coast would have hooked a lot more players from day one. So no, it's not that California was a bad choice, it was the safe choice. But if ATS launched with the East Coast first, the entire trajectory of the game might have looked completely different now. Every single time a new update drops, you see the same comments, people are asking for the same things all over again. And I get the frustration, we all want the games to evolve, but we forget something important. The engine these games run on was never built for those kind of features. SCS has been pushing it far beyond what it was ever designed to do. A real graphic overhaul, or moving to Unreal Engine, or releasing ETS3, that's not an update, that's a brand new game. And here's the tricky part, yes, people would pay for ETS3, but would they be happy to pay full price again, just to buy all the same map regions as the DLC a second time? Because financially, SCS would have to redo every country, every city, every asset, and then sell them again to stay afloat. The idea of rebuilding Europe piece by piece would split the community even more. So when players say just make ETS3, just rebuild the engine, it sounds simple, but behind the scenes it's years of work, millions in production costs, and a business risk that would sink the company. So yeah, not everything SCS doesn't do is because they're slow or ignoring the feedback. Some things are just impossible without breaking everything else or restarting the whole franchise. There's actually a reason these games have survived for so long. SCS should keep prioritizing stability over innovation? Maybe. I think that's why these games have survived for so long. People love to say that the games move slowly, that the engine is old, the updates don't shake things up enough. And yeah, sometimes that's true. But here's the flip side, ETS2 is 13 years old and ATS almost 10. They still have millions of active players. How many games can you say that about? SCS could have chased flashy features or big experimental updates or risky overhauls. But doing that usually kills long-term stability. Most studios try it and then they collapse under bugs, performance issues, or just community burnout. Instead, SCS chose consistency, small steps, slow improvements. Innovation is great, everyone wants to see the future, but stability is the reason you can reinstall ETS2 in 2025 and not have to worry about a game-breaking bug. This is easily the most sensitive topic in the entire trucksing community, and the opinions here couldn't be more divided. On one side, you have players saying that the DLC deserves a proper release because the team spent years building it, because the region is beautiful, and because scssoftware, a game developer, should have nothing to do with the world politics. On the other side, you have people who believe releasing it even now would send the wrong message or create unnecessary controversy, or simply feel out of place given the current situation. And the truth is, both sides have valid arguments. That's why this topic keeps coming back. It's not black and white, it's complicated and emotions run deep. SCS basically ended up in a lose-lose situation. If they released it, people would criticize them. If they held it back, people would criticize them again. There was no clean answer, and there still isn't. What I do know is this: the amount of work that went into Heart of Russia is insane. The map promised to look incredible, the assets quality was one of the best at a time. And no matter what your stance is, I think it deserves more than becoming a quiet, forgotten project stuck on a limbo. So I'm not here to tell you which answer is right. I don't even fully know myself. Personally, I believe that not releasing the map when the waters were hottest was the right thing to do, and I also hope that one day we will get to experience what the DLC has to offer, one way or another. If you enjoyed this video, maybe you'll enjoy the next one, so be sure to subscribe. If you have any unpopular opinions of your own, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Until the next time, stay safe on the road and keep on trucking. Cheers.